This is what the UFC Strawweight Rankings looked like at the beginning of 2015. Carla Esparza had just beaten Rose Namajunas to win the inaugural Strawweight Championship, and Joanna Jedrzejczyk had beaten Claudia Gadelha to become the #1 contender. This rankings video is going to be fun because we get to see from the beginning of the rankings history for the strawweight division how things have changed. Because if you're looking at it right now, yeah, you can see that a good amount has changed, although not too much. We see some familiar faces that are still around today, so let's get right into it. The UFC Strawweight Rankings complete history. Let's do it. To start things off, Joanna Jedrzejczyk TKO's Carla Esparza becoming the new UFC Strawweight Champion. Marina Moroz submits Joanne Calderwood, bringing Moroz up into the top 10 and knocking Calderwood down 1. Paige VanZant got a decision win over Felice Herrig, bumping Herrig off the top 10, and Paige VanZant all the way up to number 7. Ronda Markos defeated Asling DALY, which moved DALY out of the top 10. A random shuffle put Moroz ahead of Calderwood, who she had recently defeated. Tecia Torres got a decision win over Angela Hill. Joanna Jedrzejczyk defended her title, TKOing Jessica Penne. Michelle Waterson submitted Angela Magana, which gave Waterson her top 10 debut. Joanne Calderwood got a decision win over Courtney Casey. Then Claudia Gadelha got a decision win over Jessica Aguilar, which moved Gadelha to the #1 contender spot. Valerie LETOURNEAU got a decision win over Moroz, giving LETOURNEAU her debut in the top 10. Paige VanZant submitted Chambers, moving VanZant up 1 spot to number 6. Valerie LETOURNEAU was then given a title shot, and that moved her up 2 spots in the rankings. Rose Namajunas submitted Angela Hill, moving Namajunas up to the number 3 spot at strawweight. Joanna Jedrzejczyk got a decision win over Valerie LETOURNEAU, but LETOURNEAU's performance bumped her up 2 spots. Rose Namajunas submitted Paige VanZant, which moved VanZant down 1 spot. Tecia Torres got a decision win over Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger, which moved her up to number 4. And to end the year, Karolina Kowalkiewicz got a decision win over Ronda Markos, bumping Markos down to number 9. And at the end of 2015, this is what the UFC Strawweight Rankings look like. As you can see, the strawweight division went through some major changes in the first year, especially from 6 to 10, as it was sorting itself out in its first year as a division in the UFC. We saw Joanna Jedrzejczyk establish herself as a dominant champion, not only winning the title this year, but defending it twice. We also saw Valerie LETOURNEAU climb the rankings, although she did lose a championship fight. Paige VanZant moved up in the rankings, Rose Namajunas and Claudia Gadelha got that #1 contendership spot. Let's see how things changed in 2016. To start off 2016, we had a major random shuffle with Calderwood and Markos getting knocked off the rankings, and Kowalkiewicz making her debut in the strawweight top 10. Moroz then got a decision win over Christina Stanciu, moving up 1 spot to number 8. Rose Namajunas at number 3 got a decision win over number 4 Torres. A random shuffle then put Valerie LETOURNEAU into the top 5 and Penne out of the top 5. Carla Esparza then got a decision win over Juliana Lima. Karolina Kowalkiewicz got a decision win over Heather Jo Clark, bumping her up 3 spots to number 7. Jessica Andrade then TKO Jessica Penne, moving Penne down to number 10, and Andrade making her top 10 debut at number 7. Joanne Calderwood then TKO'd Valerie LETOURNEAU, bumping LETOURNEAU out of the top 5, and Calderwood making her way back onto the rankings. Joanna Jedrzejczyk then defended her title against the #1 contender, Claudia Gadelha, beating her by decision. Kowalkiewicz then got a decision win over Rose Namajunas, which put her up to the #2 contender spot at strawweight. Marina Moroz then got a decision win over Danielle Taylor. Paige VanZant then moved up 2 spots after getting a KO head kick against Bec Rawlings. Jessica Andrade then submitted Joanne Calderwood, moving Andrade to the top 5 of the strawweight division. Joanna Jedrzejczyk then defended her title yet again, this time in a decision win over Kowalkiewicz. Claudia Gadelha then solidified her spot at number 1, getting a decision win over Courtney Casey. Viviane Pereira got a decision win over Valerie LETOURNEAU, which moved LETOURNEAU out of the top 10 strawweight rankings. Michelle Waterson got a submission win over Paige VanZant, which moved Waterson back into the top 10 at number 7. And at the end of 2016, this is what the UFC Strawweight Rankings look like. We had some major movement from Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Jessica Andrade moving their way to the top 5 of the division, although Kowalkiewicz at the end of the year lost to Jedrzejczyk, which stopped her momentum. But it'll be interesting to see if Andrade can take that momentum that she got from 2015 into 2016. We also see Michelle Waterson moving her way up now at number 7, and the rest of the fighters kind of just maintaining their spots in the division. And we're at that point of the video where I ask if you can please like the video if you do in fact like these rankings videos, and consider subscribing to SBN MMA. We put out a lot of good content, and we have the pound for pound rankings history coming out in a couple of weeks, so subscribe for that. Anyways though, let's get on to 2017. Tecia Torres gets a decision win over Bec Rawlings to start off the year, and then Jessica Andrade gets a decision win over Angela Hill, moving her ahead of Rose Namajunas. Ronda Markos then gets a decision win over Carla Esparza. Esparza now out of the top 5 for the first time, and Markos back into the top 10. Rose Namajunas then submits Michelle Waterson, keeping her spot at number 4. Joanna Jedrzejczyk then defends her title yet again, which moves Andrade down 1 spot, and Namajunas now up to number 3. Claudia Gadelha gets a submission win over Kowalkiewicz in a number 1 versus number 2 contender fight. Felice Herrig gets a decision win over Justine Kish. VanZant out of the rankings, Herrig back in. Carla Esparza gets a decision win over MOROZ, which gives Esparza the number 7 spot at strawweight. Tecia Torres then continues to stay at number 5, submitting Juliana Lima. Cynthia Calvillo then gets a decision win over Joanne Calderwood, which gives Calvillo her debut, moving her up 7 spots to 7. Calderwood and Markos get bumped off the rankings after Markos loses to Grasso, and VanZant and Herrig are now back on the rankings. Jessica Andrade then gets a decision win over the number 1 contender Claudia Gadelha, which makes Andrade now the number 1 contender. Kowalkiewicz then gets a decision win over Jodie Esquibel. And then finally, Joanna Jedrzejczyk is defeated, a shocking upset as Rose Namajunas gets the TKO to become the UFC Strawweight Champion. Felice Herrig then gets a decision win over Courtney Casey, moving her up to number 8. Tecia Torres then defeats Michelle Waterson, which moves Waterson down 1 spot. A random shuffle moves Paige VanZant out of the UFC rankings and Alexa Grasso into the top 10. Carla Esparza then gets a decision win over Cynthia Calvillo, which moves Esparza up 3 spots and Cynthia Calvillo down to number 8. And at the end of 2017, this is what the UFC Strawweight Rankings look like. Some major changes in the Strawweight Rankings as we saw both the champion Joanna Jedrzejczyk and the consistent number 1 contender Claudia Gadelha lose to new challengers. Rose Namajunas becomes the UFC Strawweight Champion after being in the top 5 for her entire UFC career. Finally cracks into the championship position, and then the newcomer Jessica Andrade defeats Claudia Gadelha to move to the top 2 in the Strawweight Rankings. So what will happen in 2018 now that we've had major changes in the top of the division? It's a good question. We also have the flyweight division being introduced. How will that affect the division? Let's see. Let's get right into 2018. To start off 2018, USADA defeats Cynthia Calvillo, who tests positive for marijuana. Calvillo is taken off of the rankings. Jessica Andrade then gets a decision win over Tecia Torres. Karolina Kowalkiewicz also gets a decision win, this one over Felice Herrig. Rose Namajunas makes sure that it wasn't a fluke, getting a decision win over Joanna Jedrzejczyk to defend her strawweight title. Michelle Waterson stays at number 7 with a decision win over Courtney Casey. Then Tatiana Suarez gets a submission win over Alexa Grasso. Grasso off of the top 10, Suarez onto the top 10. Claudia Gadelha then gets a decision win over Carla Esparza. I thought Esparza won the fight, but that doesn't matter. Nina Ansaroff gets a decision win over Ronda Markos, which gives Ansaroff her debut in the top 10. Jedrzejczyk in her first non-title fight since losing the championship gets a decision win over Tecia Torres. Courtney Casey then reclaims her position at number 10, getting a decision win over Angela Hill. Jessica Andrade then KO's Karolina Kowalkiewicz. That doesn't change anything though. Tatiana Suarez then TKO's the former champion Carla Esparza, moving her up all the way to the number 4 position. And then Michelle Waterson, to wrap things up, gets a decision win over Felice Herrig, which doesn't change anything. And right now, in December of 2018, this is what the UFC Strawweight Rankings look like. So not a lot changed in 2018 other than Tatiana Suarez going from nothing to something into the top 5, landing at number 4 after a couple of big wins. So now the interesting thing heading into 2019 will be, where does the division go from here? We have a new champion in Rose Namajunas. We have the number 1 contender, Joanna Jedrzejczyk, who's fighting this weekend for a flyweight championship. Will she leave the division? And contenders like Andrade and Suarez, will they be able to beat Rose Namajunas, who is a new champion in the division? Exciting times for the strawweight division, and it'll be interesting to see where things go from here. So we're all done for this video. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to get the pound for pound rankings video, which will come out in a couple of weeks. I'm excited for that one. Anyways, we're done here, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in the pound for pound ranking.